What's going on, guys? And Merry Christmas. Happy holidays for those that are celebrating. We got a special edition of the Snapchat today. Really not all that much, but we're going to be having some holiday discussion, but mainly talking about the newest card to drop on Tuesday. Nothing says happy holidays like Selene gifting negative power and cold to your opponents. We're going to break down her, how good she is, and why she might be one of the best one-drops to come to Marvel Snap, talking combos, synergies, and everything you need to know. Other than that, we're going to be talking about a really fun subject of the best, most busted cards to ever exist in Marvel Snap's history. Taking a look back, anything past the beta and beyond is fair game. And it's one of my favorite discussions that we've had to date. And then we're going to end it on the OTA changes, the winners and the losers of the patch. We're going to be talking about all of that today on this Christmas episode of the Snapchat. And as always, on this holiday, I am joined by Snappy Claus, Alex Coccia, dressing up for the occasion. First of all, guys, Merry Christmas to you if you're listening today, this morning. We're hoping you guys have a great morning. Got all the gifts that you wish from Santa, and overall, the holiday is great. How is Christmas over there for you, Alex? Snappy Claus, sorry.
It's been great. I got to tell you, the elves have been working really hard in the workshop. They've been trying to brew some new decks, clap some cheeks, but most importantly, they're having fun out there in Marvel Snap. So I got to say, the elves, they're inspiring me on this holiday season.
I love the 12 days of Christmas when they talk about clapping cheeks. There's no way you could breathe in that thing, right? There's no way that there's good airflow going on.
No, my glasses are starting to fog up as well, and I can't really see.
Snappy Claus is going to die here on set to kick off your Christmas morning. Well, guys, we're excited to celebrate the holiday with you. We've got a great Snapchat today, a lot to break down. We had the OTA that a lot of people were waiting for. We have some good subjects. I love that the card coming out today, or this week, that we're going to talk about, Selene, is the opposite of Christmas cheer. It's literally giving coal for all to hear. It's the most toxic card they could possibly release, which is probably why they did it, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like Selene, I think is a great kind of addition to the holidays, because if you're feeling really good about playing Marvel Snap on Christmas, Selene's gonna come out and say, "Nah, bro, like here to ruin the day for you."
Dude, I can't. I'm in love with like.
I can't breathe.
I'm in love with if Santa played like basketball and or paintball and or just was a gamer. If Santa was gaming, Santa games a little bit. He has to. What is he doing? He's got the elves to do the rest of it. I just want to know what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like, he's not doing the presents. He's not supervising. He has like a hierarchy of elves. What is he doing all year?
Playing Snap.
He's playing Snap. Yeah, that's a perfect advertisement. When you get pages in, he's playing Snap. He's playing Snappy around and watching Alex Coccia's Twitch channel. But yeah, it's something like that. Probably drinking eggnog and getting flirty with Mrs. Claus. Anyway, if your kids are listening, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays for those that are celebrating. Alex, listen, man, the OTA, we're going to break it all down. But what are we talking about on your side of the channel?
Cozy, we're going to be talking about Havoc in review, giving our impressions of our first week with Havoc, an absolutely toxic card. And we're going to be talking about the top 10 worst cards in Marvel Snap's history. I cannot wait to have that conversation with Cozy. And finally, we're going to be doing our Christmas edition of the Snapchat mailbag. I can't wait to get into it.
Are you a guy that puts up lights on the outside of your house?
Oh, I got lights everywhere. My kids absolutely love it. Actually, there was a problem this year because my kids really wanted like multicolored lights. And my wife's like, no, like we just do white classic lights. She wants like the incandescent, soft white glow all around the house. She likes things being classy. I'm like, no, the kids, they want some color. She's like, but the house is going to look tacky and stupid. I'm like, don't worry, I got it. Went to Costco. I spent like an absolute fortune. I bought like 2,000 lights, a 12-foot Santa Claus that inflates on the front lawn. My wife, we're going full cringe here in Canada.
Yeah, don't worry, wife. I got it. I got a 12-foot Santa ready to rock. So did you hang all these up yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not able to get like to the roof, like, because I kind of do like the rim of the garage and stuff like that. I do all the bushes. We have this like nice tree on the front where I actually did like the full wrap around. It's legit, man. It's pretty. The kids get hyped up when they pull up, and especially with Santa, because Santa's like huge.
I drink like double when I'm doing the Christmas lights hang up. It's always like, I'm like, I can knock this out in 2 hours. And then it's like 9 hours later, the sun's going down. I'm beaten. My back is broken. Like, fun fact, dude, I used to run a Christmas light installation business.
What, really? I always wondered about that. Did you used to install the Christmas lights in the soffits?
So I did essentially, dude, I look back, this is so funny. I was in college, man, and this guy came to my house pre-college. He rolls up in like a Mercedes or something. He's like, "Yeah, man, I do Christmas lights." I'm like, "No way. This is lucrative. I've got to do it," right? So I go to the middle of nowhere, Lubbock, Texas, went to Texas Tech University, and I went, dude, I was playing Michael Bublé in like October, knocking on doors, because they do it early there. You know, they do it. Some people do it. You got to get out there. You got to beat the other people. And you go to the oldest neighborhoods, right? They can't do their lights. They can't do it. And they've got some money to blow. And dude, I was knocking door to door October. I probably looked like a maniac. You probably couldn't get away with it nowadays. And I asked people if I could hang their Christmas lights. No insurance. No clue what I was doing. Dude, we had like 100 customers. I blew it away. I did it for 2 years. It was great. I probably burnt down a lot of houses.
Man.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's such a great idea. I wish I thought of it myself, except here it's like colder, it rains all the time, and then it gets icy and slippery. Insurance and like some sort of like jacket with like the tether would probably be mandatory.
Oh, dude, I look back and I was like, I'm lucky I didn't die. I was wearing like, my dumbass was wearing like cowboy boots on a roof. I fell off, right? And I'm like, oh, the insurance will cover it. Wait, there is no insurance. So I just was in pain. But you know, you're in college, you wipe it up. But definitely had some, you know, I've had better days. We forgot to tell the customers we don't take them down. We don't take the lights down. We just put them up. And that didn't leave.
Key. I'm trying to picture you with like cowboy boots, like climbing up a ladder onto like a roof and stuff, like just pure safety, like 100% safety.
It's just 100% safety. Can you imagine though, somebody putting up like $1,000 of Christmas lights, and you're like 90, and then we're like, oh, we don't take them down. I'm wondering how many of these people still have them up. I feel bad. This was young. I mean, I was young pup, all right, but like, do you think they still have them up?
Yes.
Anyway, happy holidays. Let's go ahead and let's kick it. Let's talk about, we have a lot. I know we want to get to the OTA. That's what a lot of people love to hear the feedback on. But let's start with Selene, the newest card coming out Tuesday, the day after Christmas. The kind of a sad day, I feel like, overall. You know, typically you get the nice high of the holidays and you go down a little bit. Selene, my man. Let's talk about, if you don't know, she is a 1-cost, -1 power. On reveal, afflict the lowest power card in each player's hand with -3 power. Alex, again, happy holidays. This card is going to just make people... You know what? I guess we're coming off the Christmas hump and we're like back to reality. This is a back to reality card for Marvel Snap. Initial star ratings. I think obviously the OTA took her down. I think I had her at about a 4-star. I can start. That's fine. With much higher, like 5-star must-have for junk, to probably still essential in the junk. I love that. I don't know. She's still really good. It went from like a 4-star easily, no matter what, to we have to see. And I have her around 3 to 4.5 now. 3 being the could happen.
I agree 100%. You know, basically it was a 5-star card for junk, basically a 2-star card everywhere else, if that. And now it's like, it's what happened around it that is kind of problematic for the card, that brings down its overall value. It's still going to be an absolutely required card for that archetype. That much is clear. The archetype is going to be significantly weaker without Selene. It's like it's actually waiting for Selene to come to save it a little bit. However, the changes around the Black Widow specifically is huge, and obviously Viper is huge too. But you still have a Nihilus. Those decks are still probably going to have Green Goblin. So, like, I think the deck design might shift a little bit, but the really powerful synergistic pieces have changed enough to take me a little bit off Selene. I agree with your assessment. Probably about a 3-star now.
Now, before, as always, we go into all the politics with Selene, let's talk about the Spotlight. Listen, say what you will. It's been a spicy month of Spotlights, and we continue the spice. We had a good blob week. Havoc was, you know, solid too with the cards available, and Nico. Dude, Iron Lad is the card of cards. This is what people have been waiting for. How long have we been waiting for Iron Lad to finally be in a spotlight?
Me, I've been waiting forever, because the #1 comment on my channel is, how do I replace Iron Lad? I'm actually sad. We're going to lose all that engagement. All that YouTube engagement's going to be gone because people are going to have Iron Lad. It's a sad day for us YouTubers. But honestly, it's 100% true. This is like one of the most absolute sought after cards in Marvel Snap. I get the question nonstop, and it's an irreplaceable card. Yep. Its ability is never replicated, never intimidated, or imitated. Maybe it's intimidating, but anyways, I'm getting confused. What I will say is, what's not confusing is how good Iron Lad is, because he's incredible.
The Spotlight Variant 2 is the most scary thing I've ever laid my eyes upon. I was maybe you love it. No,
it's terrible. I can't even. I hope I don't roll it.
I legit did like a what am I looking at here? But guys, on top of Iron Lad, oh, you have a consolation prize in a very fun card and good in Ebony Blade Black Knight. So I'm telling you that, guys, this discard is on the rise. February is going to be a sweet month, and so Black Knight's going to get really good by then. So this is a good week. This is a great week. I'm telling you guys, it's definitely up there on my list of weeks that you might want to consider going for on the spotlight. And for that alone, and Selene's a banger. Seems like another, like, you gotta get it if you do play junk at least, and you don't have maybe Iron Lad. Let's go and talk about some synergies where we best see her. And I think really there's a lot to start with, but let's start with the junk, and more so, let's look at the ability. On reveal, afflict the lowest power card in each player's hand with -3, right? So what cards do you want to inflict, right? So my kind of initial thoughts is you got to go with the hood to start things out, right? Like the hood, getting things kicking and rolling, adding to your hood that you probably plan on destroying or pushing in one way or another is going to be one of the key targets. But obviously we both can just sit here and say it's going to be the goblins. I mean, just adding, maybe not even Hob, adding to Green Goblin here and making him a 3 -6. A 3 -6, Alex. I mean, this is a 5 -8, which -11 is great, but once you're at -8, you're already pushing so much garbage, right? This is a lane altering card.
Absolutely, and don't forget, there's value to occupying the opponent's space on the board as well. Like, that is worth something. You don't see a power reflection of it, but you are obstructing your opponent's ability to play in that location, which can be absolutely huge, right? And so, yeah, these synergies are going to be incredible. The only thing is that you're going to want them in the hand. And that's one thing that takes a little bit of power off of Selene, is that if you're holding Selene and you don't have one of the goblins there, you're like, man, I kind of actually want to play the card it's going to hit. You know what I mean? And that kind of feels bad. So that makes the card feel a little more fair, but you're always going to have Green Goblin and Hobgoblin in the deck. You have one of two chances to hit one of them. And no, you're right. It's a huge power play. I think it's a snappable condition if you do hit the Green Goblin with the -3.
So obviously, like when I think Goblin, right, the first thing that comes to mind, what is this going to skyrocket in popularity? I'm telling you guys, it's going to happen. You thought you had problems with other cards. This is going to make Galactus decks all around. If you want Galactus to come back, here's your ticket, right? Oh no, your null has -3. Doesn't matter. You can now maybe even get an Annihilus Galactus build together, something that works with some synergy there. Bro, this is Galactus's deck. Getting the Goblin at -6, your opponent is going to be abandoning, at least the first couple of weeks, play Galactus like crazy with this card, because people are not going to be assuming it, right? They should, but they're not going to. I think this is going to be the biggest rise in Galactus once this card comes out.
It's a great call out, because even when not when Sentry came out, when Annihilus came out and Sentry was being tested with Annihilus, there were Galactus decks being tested, and they were good. They were positive 50% win rates. They had positive cube rates. They just weren't the optimal version of Annihilus, and so people kind of forgot they existed. You could actually play a Galactus Annihilus deck right now and be successful. Like, it is a good deck. It's just kind of faded from people's memories. That's kind of what's interesting about Marvel Snap's meta sometimes, where good decks kind of get forgotten about. But like, yeah, no, I agree 100%. Like when you have a -11 Hob on your side, it's like, well, I think G-Man might be coming for a visit.
Yeah, like Ravona Galactus potentially is being a thing. And honestly, just Ravona, we've never had a card that can take... it's kind of interesting. As long as it's below Ravona's power, we haven't had a card that can inflict your own hand with negative. And Ravona, it does work like that. Like Bast will ruin Ravona's synergy. So you could technically discount any card of your choosing. Even, it can't be Galactus, but it'd have to be under that 1 and down, threshold. But that's some synergy that we're cooking up here, and you can get that Hobgoblin for -11. You can get the Green Goblin. You can Warpath, throw them off a little bit. You have, Alliath doesn't matter. Null doesn't matter if they get hit, even if you don't draw the Goblins. This is a win more for Annihilus. Annihilus is already so good, and the Sentry play is so hard to kind of work out together. Now, keep in mind, sending the Hood at -6 and Selene, right? Selene's -1. Selene is -1, so she's going to be in that package of cards that Annihilus sends over.
No, I agree 100%. And like, honestly, that's kind of why I took a little bit of like a star off because it does have a narrow application. However, it's going to be a standout here. It's absolutely going to be a standout. And I want to also mention another synergy, which I am most excited for, because there's going to be times where, you're going to have a turn one Selene and you're holding on to Hob or you're holding on to Green Goblin and you're very comfortable throwing it out there because like, it's just going to hit something in their hand.
After the OTA changes, I know we got pretty excited about like Black Widow and doing the follow-up play, Werewolf by Night. We knew that the junk bounce would be good, which I still think, again, as we've kind of talked about, will be good. Viper, it's like they knew that Selene was going to bust it wide open. They knew Selene was going to be the final cog piece. And whereas those combos are still going to work, and you still can use like Selene to Widow's Bite a turn later on 4. Viper you can do as well, but it's going to be, again, later per se, right? Because of the 3 who I think got hit probably the most, which we'll talk about on the OTA recap. Yeah, right. Doesn't it seem like they got ahead of it?
Yeah, they did. And like, it's a shame because like, I actually really think that those synergistic plays were a huge part of Selene's appeal. And I think it takes a little bit off because you might be thinking, Alex, it's only one turn later. But like, if you think about like Black Widow's disruptive effect, it's most effective early in the game, right? It has that knock-on effect of not drawing a card on turn 2 or 3. And it's like, well, damn it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when you delay that, you do inherently reduce the power of that effect. So I think it's a big change. It really is a big change, but perhaps it had to happen, right? If their testing is showing that it's way too detrimental, because as it is, Annihilus and these types of disruption-based decks are huge, right? So
yeah, dude, I honestly think this deck was gonna absolutely destroy, and in the worst way. Like, it's funny, like destroy decks can be on top of the meta, right? And it's like, oh yeah, the Deadpool getting 50 power, but if it's junk for 3 weeks and everybody's on holiday, it's bad, right? We have Widow Bites shooting out Selenes and Annihiluses and Hoods. The Werewolf was already just so dang good that I feel like they didn't want to lean into it more and into the bounce archetype even more so, right? The Havoc play has been pretty nice too. We'll talk about Havoc on your side, right? But they kind of addressed that with Viper as well. I was playing Junk Bounce with Havoc. I still think Selene is a very, very good card. But yeah, this will definitely have her take a hit. Lastly, Alex, let's kind of put the bow on Selene. We have 2 last things to talk about. Don't know how we didn't mention it, but for one, let's end this topic with what are the biggest cards to target? Where Selene can also just really hurt opponents' decks. I think it's clear as day, right? Like Iron Man is just a brutal, a game-ending card if Selene hits that. Anything on the top of your head?
I mean, off the top of my head, like Arnim Zola. Not that Zola really matters anyway, because actually no, I take that back. Because Zola's always 0, usually throwing that location anyways. It's always been Iron Man. It's been really frustrating, I think, for most players. But honestly, like if you think about it, just anything that it hits is good, right? Like there's obviously going to be cards that later in the game, cards that like you're holding with low powers, Cerebros, Mystiques you might be holding on turn 6 is huge too, right? You tend to hold those back a little bit. But at the end of the day, like honestly, I think that if you play Selene early and it hits a card, it's going to discourage the person from playing that card. Like they're like, oh, I want to play this rescue, but like now I really don't want to play rescue because of that damn -3. Like I think it's just it's a deterrent on whatever card it hits. And I think that like it's important to note that like it's almost like Iceman where it kind of derails their plan a little bit. Because they're like, man, do I actually now really want to play this card? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and Cerebro was a great point. That ruined Cerebro decks, which are getting a small uptick. But also, I don't want to just glaze by like Arnim Zola there. Because I'm going to be honest, if there's a Black Panther in a lane, there's times where like you don't attack that lane. Or maybe not Black Panther, Blob, I don't know, whatever. Arnim Zola targets. You don't attack that lane as the opponent. And there are times where it's 0-0. And you're hoping that Arnim Zola can tie that, just the 0-0, keeps it at that. And then you split it up, right? -3, you're losing that lane like completely, right? I get what you're saying, but I think it also could hurt, more than you might think. Well, that takes us to our next subject, and that is one dude.
Whoa, hold on. I don't want to interrupt, but I got a question. I was thinking about this, okay? We got Christmas Day today. It's important that we figure something out. Cozy, you are one of the finest groomed gentlemen on the internet. It's been established. We know that. This is fact. I'm not just making stuff up here. Now, I have a question for you. Do you cut down your tree? Do you have like a fresh tree in your house? Or I suspect that Cozy Snap has a fake tree because you like it just perfect.
Oh my God. I thought, first of all, that could have been like a Manscaped like ad or something like at the end, just be like, And by the way, you
Oh, we're
too
getting
can.
to that.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure. Yeah, I mean, we already talked about the Alex Coccia Diaries and the 50 Shades of Coccia. Anyway, yes, I'm a fake. I'm a fake tree guy. Here's the thing. I think it's where you grow up, man. I grew up in Texas. You know, like we didn't have I don't even think they had Christmas tree farms. In fact, I dare say I don't even know if I knew it was an option. I think one year my mom did it, and like she's like, okay, let's get a real one. And it was so much upkeep. She's like, nah, we're done with it. And I've gone fake ever since, man. I've gone fake. It's not snow and buzz. It's not a white Christmas. It's a brown ass dead Christmas over here outside. Yeah.
Too much upkeep. Are you referring to watering it?
I don't know. What wasn't my words? I was a young pup. Apparently, my mother hated the real tree. I think there's an actual pretty big separation of fan base here, man. I think there is a big fake tree club, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
I mean, listen, I know you said you're from Texas, and it's like, I'm just trying to understand, like, what were you putting in the tree? Like, it's just water. It's not that hard. Were you putting like oil in there? Like, were you like welling to get some oil for the tree? Yeah. Actually, I had not thought about this, but are there evergreen trees in Texas? There can't be, right? It's way too hot.
No,
there.
It's cedar. Look at a cedar tree. It's the ugliest tree. It's like God's mistake. It's just it's a disgusting tree. You don't.
I never realized you guys you don't put like Christmas trees in. You get a tree and just call it a Christmas tree. So you just like cut down like a regular tree. Just
no,
there's not even an evergreen.
No, they import them. The importing exists. Importing and exporting. You seen Seinfeld? It exists. We're not putting any
trucks
tree
in Texas.
Let's get to the subject. Okay, are you good? Does that satisfy your question?
It doesn't satisfy my question. I'm actually upset, but you've answered it. Thank you.
So we can establish you are also a fake tree kind of guy?
No, I get out there. I'm in the snow. I cut down my tree. My kids pick the tree. I cut it down with a saw. I carry it over my shoulder like an actual lumberjack in Canada. And sometimes, because it's too big, sometimes I try to squeeze it into the car over the seats of the kids because the place they kind of wind the tree so it's like really tight. Sometimes I gotta like strap it to the roof and stuff.
You eat like a bowl of nails after that, have some, Jack Daniels, like any other manly things you need to do once you've done that?
So yeah, after I put up the tree, what I do is I put up the Christmas lights and I stand outside for about half hour and I just headbutt the wall of my house like this. Just to kind of get in the mood.
It's full
circle. And then I put up the lights. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I'm wearing a turtleneck, It's like, does this look like I'm cutting down Christmas trees? Probably not.
Does it look like I'm cutting down Christmas trees?
Absolutely. Most busted cards in Marvel Snap. This is a very fun subject, dude. It actually took me back. I really had to think about it. We're not going to do the beta because there's some truly wacky, stupid stuff in the beta because they were just like testing stuff out. Since Marvel Snap's inception and it launched, what were the best cards ever to exist in the game? You guys think the woes of today are bad? No, we've escaped them, and Alex and I have made separate top 10s, and we're going to put them to the test, starting with number 10. Now, I do want to say, this is a good one to say. Do you have any honorable mentions here? I think there are some tough ones to divide.
I do have some honorable mentions that I'd like to make if possible.
Hit me.
Now, some of these have not been completely, utterly broken, but for instance, an honorable mention, how do you not mention Dr. Doom? I don't know if Dr. Doom ever makes the top 10 because like he was never broken, but consistently one of the absolute best cards in Marvel Snap that got nerfed for such a small point of time. And even the developers like, no, we can't do this. We can't nerf Dr. Doom. He's never been broken. He's always been consistently one of the best cards in the game, but he's never been a problem. Dr. Doom deserves a mention.
Oh, dude, I have all of mine are just like they could never exist today. They just could never. And Dr. Doom exists, so maybe that speaks to it. But okay, I like it. I have Lockjaw as one of my honorable mentions when you could throw in as many as you want. Really good, don't get me wrong. It could never exist today, but as far as like where it was, how good it was, he's right out of my top 10. And that just shows how insanely cracked some of these cards are. And I also have Quinjet there, which is another like, what? How do you have Quinjet? It just couldn't compare to the other 10 that I had on my list.
It's funny that you bring up these one drops because, like, for me, just outside the top 10 for me was the OG Sunspot. Like, Sunspot, like, it's easy to forget how prevalent Sunspot was.
Yeah.
Like, if you go back to some of our prior Snapchats, we were talking about how, like, like Sunspot was regularly a 1-9 or 1-12 or like some stupid amount depending on the meta.
Yep.
Sunspot was one of the absolute staple 1-drops, and it didn't get nerfed a lot. Like it was just, what was it, a 1-1 to a 1-0? But the meta evolved around it so much, right? And Destroy really came into being as like we got a couple months where Destroy got a lot of tools and Sunspot fell off. But like there was a long time where Sunspot was the only 1-drop you would have to play.
Yeah, no, seriously. There's so many cards that I thought back on. I was like, how do I not include that? It's so tough to. Like, there's 3 here at the bottom. Like 8 and up, 7 and up, I'm like, done. Those are obvious to me. The ones right here on the cusp. Like, one I wanted to mention was Darkhawk. I forgot what they did to him, but I'm pretty sure he had like extra power to his name too. And like he was like even more busted than he was now. Yeah. I barely remember it because it was a very short stint lived. It was in December.
4-2 at launch? Was it a 4-2?
Dude, I think it was a 4-2 or 4-3, which is so silly. Like I can't even conjure why that was it. Someone can help us out there. I know all the specifics on the ones in my top 10, but I left him kind of right out just because of that. It was busted, but Darkhawk was already good, and then that made him even better kind of thing. But anyway, let's start it, man. Number 10 for you, bud.
Thanos with the Lockjaw free. Wait, hold on. This is like the Lockjaw Thanos combination. So this is half Lockjaw, half Thanos. He was absolutely busted. But the reason why I dropped him down, Cozy's already upset. I told you not to let me start, man. I told you were going to get upset. You made me do it. Snappy Claws is angry. But anyways, actually, Snappy Claws is defensive already. We just started. You haven't even said anything. You're just giving me that look. I know what you're thinking, Cozy.
What if I was just like, great pick, you know?
Yeah. Great pick, Alex. It's also my number 10 is what Cozy's going to say. I mean, Cozy, we literally went months with this card undiscovered in the meta, like completely unplayed until it finally took off, dominated, and then resulted in the eventual nerf to Lockjaw. And for me, listen, I get it. Listen, I got to admit, when Thanos came out, you said, Alex, this is going to be the card that takes you to infinite. And guess what? My first infinite was on the back of Thanos Lockjaw. So I respect this card. It has a very special place in my heart.
Dude, Thanos, love the big bad. For me, my 10, it's got to be Galactus. Now, people kind of forget, first of all, he had more power. Second of all, dude, you didn't have to be winning the location. You could play him wherever you wanted to play him, and then it was just about priority. And then you just Shang-Chi'd him. Goodbye. Can you imagine this with Alioth and the Shang-Chi together? This card was... Not only was he like the most villainous card, I think, in Snap, but on top of that, he could never exist today. For that reason, I got him at number 10. We just finished talking about him, but he's definitely was just a new force to be reckoned with.
He was. And like when he took over the meta, damn. Like just damn. I have no other word for it. When Galactus was 12% of the meta, everyone who played Marvel Snap felt it. Felt it differently. You felt it when you went to bed. Like you laid in bed, you stared at your ceiling, and you saw the hand of Galactus ruining your dreams. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, dude.
I totally feel it. Number 9. Now this is a little recent, a little more of some recency bias here, but am I gonna call out the original 6-5 Alioth? Like, do we have to not talk about how Alioth is legit, like an absolutely insane release? Now it wasn't like when we talk about broken, sometimes I wonder like, man, there were cards that were a little on the higher end, but I don't think anything shook up the game as much as this Alioth did, and continues to shake up the game as much as Alioth has. So I think it deserves a place. It literally deletes unrevealed cards. It used to delete every single card that was played, regardless of its effect, right? I mean, listen, I cannot believe how overtuned that card came out as. Like 6-5 that deleted everything. Absolutely wild.
Yeah, for sure, man. I don't have him on my list. I think he definitely was very polarizing. I don't think I think people could still argue that today, that he's still one of the most busted to ever come out. So I'm glad that he was on one of our 2 lists. No question. 9 is where I had a difficult because I was going between 2 cards. One had to be left off for actually some recent cards, kind of to your statement there. But ultimately, I had to go with the OG Wave. One that I forgot that I didn't have on, and if you're going to talk about it later, I can definitely just not talk about it. But a Beast, the 2-2 Beast was like, what the hell? Like, you looking back, I'm like, people forget how good that was. But Wave, listen, even though Wave wasn't glaring crazy, Wave 5, Death Wave, you can't ignore it. You can't ignore how good she was, how many synergies she provided. She was virtually in, like, every deck, right? Like, Doom Wave was everywhere in the meta. How do we not talk about her as one of the most busted in the game, yeah?
No, you are right. She's not in my top 10, but honestly, like, she probably should be. And this has been one of the most influential cards, not just like busted. Like when we talk about busted, sometimes we're going to be talking about cards that like legitimately like almost destroyed Marvel Snap,
Broken.
right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But like Wave was never quite there, like never quite destroying the game, but like so damn close, like skirting to the point of like completely destroying Marvel Snap. Like it was the highest you could fly without ever like having a dedicated Reddit post about you on a daily basis.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like that's what Wave did. It was just powerful enough that no one and everyone wanted to use it, but it wasn't like an Goliath. It wasn't a Galactus. It was like it just slid under the radar
Dude,
enough to survive as long as it did.
I love that when people just like decide, like, hey guys, we all good with this? Okay, let's just don't tell on me, I won't tell on you kind of thing. And then there's other cards where it's the picket signs, right? Next up is number 8, Alex.
8? I mean, listen, it has to be on your list too. I'm going with that OG Leader. OG Leader was absolutely disgusting. Disgusting. It literally copied every single card your opponent played. But it had some fairness to it because if you didn't have any room on your side of the board, it didn't copy. But it also had a very disgusting thing, which it still does today. If you actually threw initiative on purpose and they played Silver Surfer, for instance, not only would you copy their Silver Surfer, but you would copy their boosted cards and then boost them again. That was by far the most disgusting thing about Leader. For me, number 8, the OG Leader was absolutely just a train wreck of a card.
Alex is completely smashed on Eggnog. He's smashed, guys. The Leader's got to be higher. It's got to be. I knew it.
Buddy, you have no idea, bud.
It had to happen. There goes my monetization right there. No, listen, man. I'm not even going to talk about Leader because of the disrespect. We'll talk about one of the most busted cards in Snap history. No question next. For me, next up comes Silver Surfer. I think a lot of people think this card was better than it was. You could almost look back at it and be like, man, I almost want this to come back a little bit, right? But not fully because it was really good for the meta at the time. We didn't have like anything that we have today. Sure, we didn't have Zaba, we didn't have nothing, right? We had Thanos, but prior to he was good. So I have him a little lower than I used to have him. I used to think he was like the most busted card, but it's like, I think there's way more ways to deal with it when you look at the grand scheme of things nowadays. I'd much rather have this than Leader back, for example, something, or whatever other examples we brought up. Yeah, do you have him later? We can talk about him. Thoughts?
I have him next, actually, so it's the perfect time to talk about him. He was my number 7. Like, we almost actually nailed it. And like, yeah, so he was a 3/0 that did +3, and it just created so much scaling. And it was actually like the Brood specifically was so insane at +3 buffed. And then you add in the Nova, the natural tech with Killmonger. It was just crazy how good these decks were. And I honestly think that this was a very good change. 3/2 +2. A very well done nerf to the card that also made it feel relevant. So ultimately, I'm happy where Silver Surfer is now. It doesn't have the verticality, like Sebastian Shaw helps with it. It's verticality a little bit, but it was completely broken at release. I wish I even played more of it. That's the one thing I take away from making this deck. I'm like, man, I wish I played more of the OG Leader, man. Man, I wish I played more of the OG Silver Surfer. Like, it's crazy, but like,
right?
It's wild, right? How crazy these cards were.
And I didn't even play. Yeah, like I avoided playing them for whatever reason. I was like, I'll make these other Dazzler decks, and then these were just like killing me over here. But yeah, so I have that at you had that at number 7. My number 7 was Leech. Now this was another card that I was like, wait, this was so toxic. I can't believe it. But honestly, it was always a 5 cost, right? And it could affect your hand no matter what turn. They changed it to 6. You can't ramp it out. Like at the time it sucked, but I think like if I look at the grand scheme of things, I'm like, I think I could get over. Like Leech coming out on 5 is what I kind of always hated. You're kind of screwed no matter what. Like these days, you know, if Leech comes out, you're having a tough time either way. And it's funny because Leech had this drop off forever, for like 6 months after he got touched up, and he was still as good as he is right now, right? But the Leech days were so tough to deal with, bud.
So Leech is actually on my honorable mentions. Didn't make my top 10. But what I want to mention as well is that Leech was also a product of the original Lockjaw, because you would Lockjaw Thanos and he'd come rolling out on turn 3 and just dismantle your entire game plan, right? So that was one of the grossest parts about Leech, because Leech gained popularity right when Lockjaw Thanos was literally spiraling out of control at like a 64% win rate. I think, was it the highest win rate deck in Snap's history? It must have been close.
Yeah, pretty much. Leech Leader were the first decks, which, like, just thinking about that, that was like the first, that was when I met, like, Era for the first time, because I think he made the deck, and I was like, bah,
yeah,
what is this atrocity? Because remember, dude, that was the first ever deck that just took over Snap. I remember playing and it was all you're running up against. And I was like, what's happening? Why is this the only card we're going up against? And back then it was just the fight to infinite. So yeah, no question. Just a tough card to face, man. What do you got at number 6?
Number 6. I mean, listen, I know this is probably your number one in your heart at least. Pull her up. 5'9". It's Arrow.
Wow.
That OG Arrow.
Hey.
I mean, was it not a thing of beauty? Pulling every single card they played into whatever the hell location you wanted. I still can't believe the card existed as it did there. And like, if you're saying, Alex, honestly, I'm doing you like completely disgusting here, and like it should be way higher. Like, I would agree. I couldn't do it emotionally, but I'm telling you, OG Arrow has to have been one of the most disgusting cards in Snap's history.
So 2 things. First of all, guys, we got this sheet of creators and everything they did like a questionnaire before Conquers. And one of the things is, what is your most hated card? And everybody's got, like Loki. And then I just see Arrow. And I'm like, who? And it was your boy Snappy Claws. I was like, you SOB, just to get it out of me there. And secondly, buddy, how dare you? This was my number 6, actually. I had Arrow right here.
Really?
Right here, buddy. Yeah,
No way.
oh, so good, dude. I think she could, in some form and fashion, survive today even with them. Like, because of how decks are played out, like nowhere near. She's way too good. They'd have to like mess with her power. I think she's like a 5'6" at the time, though. Maybe 5'7". Maybe 5'7", I think is what she was. Moving every card they played was so cool, man. It was such a great effect. And I feel like Alliath is the only one with this huge like effect at the end here. Whereas like if you had like Arrow, it's kind of cool because it's like you could move their Alliath and stop what they're trying to do. Like, you know what I mean? I kind of miss some of that for her. But man, I'll never forget the multiple conversations of having her at the top of my pool 3 tier list. One of my most viewed videos I ever had back in the day, and everyone's like, Arrow, Cozy, you're on copium, dude. And finally, people came around to like, oh, Arrow's completely cracked. And then we started to see her in more Death Wave. The reason I'm so associated with her was this was my most played card from the beginning of Snap until she died.
Yeah, and I mean, she was the original Alliath.
Yeah.
The whole strategy around Arrow was win 2 locations and Arrow the 3rd. Like, that was literally what you did, right? But you're going to get mad. I don't want to say my 5 because you're going to get upset.
You've said that on every pick, so go ahead. Tell me.
All right. 5 for me is High Evo. OG High Evo. Even, like, High Evo now. Like, you really didn't get nerfed that much. I mean, High Evo, I think, is still absolutely cracked. When we saw High Evo be announced, we're like, guys, listen, not just the performance. This is the thing I want to really kind of talk about here. It's not just the performance of High Evo, because it's still a phenomenal shell to this moment. It's the fact that it exists. The fact that one Series 5 card, a big bad, changed all these other cards that you've had in your collection. They even said, the developers like, you know what, it started as just like kind of like a joke idea. Someone said, hey, what if we did this? And they're like, wait a minute, let's actually do it. Like, you basically got a package of cards. It was like a buy 1, get 6 free type thing. I love it. I love it. It's one of the best releases they've ever done. A little OP at times, and it has been a tremendous performer. High Evo for me, number 5. I love it. I love it so much.
So I love you. I love that you have care and passion for High Evo. The eggnog's gotten to you. Now, if you would have said like number 10, High Evo, I'd be like, oh yeah, it was pretty good. Solid pick. You're telling me better than Leader, better than Arrow.
He completely took over the meta, but the nice thing about it was that like he was just good enough that he was able to survive way longer than those cards did because he consistently put up insane points, but never felt disgusting to play against. The only reason why he really got targeted was because everyone was friggin' playing him. But like, if you think about Leader, for instance, he kind of got put down pretty fast. Right? Sorry, what was the other one that we were just talking? Oh, Leech lasted a little longer. Leech lasted a little longer than Leader did. But like High Evo to this day has not changed all that much. It's still pretty, like they nerfed the Thing's ability slightly, right? Like it still holds like the same identity it always has, and has slid under the radar as one of the best cards in the game.
The thing for 5 is I can't put High Evo above this card because I need to really recency bias is taking hold. I need to now steer the ship, and we need to talk about him. And I could put him at number 1 at times, but it was because he was with Lockjaw and everything that you said before. Truly, buddy, we need to talk about Thanos, okay? So Thanos on your list he was on it. I don't want to talk about Lockjaw, Quinjet. We don't need to talk about his surrounding pieces. Let's just talk Thanos. Now, he was a little lower power, I believe. Oh, no, he went up to whatever. He didn't go up to 20. That's all I remember. I don't care about any of that, okay? You're talking about a card that could do its own thing and just rule the game. Brother, the original Space Stone was the most busted thing that I think I've ever seen in Snap and went up against. This is why it's like, I don't even know how I don't put this higher. They're all the same. 5 and above, they broke the game. The Space Stone, where you could move a card to or from that location, completely killed control, completely killed the way decks are played, would completely kill all the decks out right now that rely on this. The Space Stone was the most busted card in the Thanos package. But then if you just continue to go down the line and you look at all the other stones that got hit, obviously the Mind Stone just was recent, but you look at the Soul Stone on top of this too. The Soul Stone being able to give draw, the heyday and the utility of Thanos, but most importantly was that the Space Stone. That's why I've got him where I've got him here, and I think he's one of the craziest cards to exist.
You know, you're right. Like, the Space Stone was absolutely insane. It was one of the most powerful effects in the game because, like, you could literally lockjaw and then just slide something out and lockjaw again. Like, it was basically a free lockjaw cycle, right? And it's crazy how many stray bullets this guy has taken.
Yeah.
And it's not like Thanos went from a 6'9" to a 6'10". And so yeah, he gained 2 power with the. But how often do you play a 20 Thanos? Like what? Never? Like how often do you do it?
I was actually
never?
thinking about this. I never play Thanos. Like I never play the Thanos almost ever, which is so funny to think, right?
Yeah, because you never have room for it. Because you play Time Stone, you play Professor X, then you end up Lithiing or blobbing. You're never playing Thanos. Like, if you want a big stat stick, you blob, right? You go blah, 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 and he's just way bigger than Thanos is. And then otherwise, you just Goliath. It's like, you're right. It's the stones. It's the package. I mean, Thanos has got stones himself. We know that. But what I mean is, like, he's obviously, like, it's the entire thing, the archetype. That's truly tremendous.
What do you have at number 4?
Okay. Now we got to start getting onto common ground here. These top 4 are like the most disgusting cards. They're the most disgusting cards in Snap history.
Yeah, busted, stupid.
And I can't wait for you to mention one that I forgot. That's the other thing I'm dreading here because we don't show our lists in advance of each other, and one of us is gonna miss something. We know that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, right, dude. All right, hit me.
Number 4, OG Shuri. OG Shuri. It absolutely dominated for the longest time. Cozy, what do you think?
So, okay. I want to know like your other ones too, but we can't yet. It's my next one, so I'll talk about it now. That's fine. I have Shuri at number 3. Okay, not number 4. Number 3. Busted. Busted. Guys, you could play your card anywhere, and it would get the double power. Busted on busted on busted. I couldn't believe this lasted so long. My God, this could be number 1. Again, I think every card I mentioned here could just be it broke Snap. People didn't know what to do from this point. There had to be a patch. There had to be an emergency. Like, hit the red button. You could double your power wherever, man. Like, that is so good. I just can't believe it existed. You know what I mean? Like, because the biggest thing is, you're like, well, why is that big of a deal? Well, Alex, first, it was a 4-2, if that means anything. But more importantly than that, it took away the read. Like, nowadays, you know what to do against Shuri, right? They could play anywhere. They could put this power anywhere. And that's what made it so damn hard to top, right? So that, by far, was the biggest. Shuri's her own big bad.
Yeah, and like the package around her as well had not been nerfed yet. Like pre-nerf Red Skull, what was it, 28? Was it 28? I think it was.
It's 15. He was up to 15. It got to 30, bro. It got to 30.
I can't even remember. Like, it was so. I'm trying to erase it from my memory, but pre-nerf Red Skull was absolutely nuts. Like, the whole thing was crazy. And then you add Sauron to the mix as well. Like, it's just it had win condition after win condition, and there were no soul reads. You couldn't soul read. Nope. And at best, you're like, well, I'm gonna sauce Shang-Chi out there and hope for the best, right? Like, that's all you could really do.
Yep.
And if like the only way you could ever beat Shuri is if you somehow magically was able to flip the Red Skull lane, but you never were able to via straight power. You never had initiative. And so, like, it was so tricky. Taskmaster, at the time, even if you Shang-Chi'd the Red Skull, Taskmaster would be like, hey, zip into the graveyard. I'll copy that. Thank you very much, right? Yeah. And it was actually your boy that said, hey, we got to get rid of this Taskmaster scanning the graveyard stuff. That's like old school Snapchat right there. But anyways, yeah, the whole thing was a disaster.
Oh, such a disaster, man. So that meant at number 4 for me, this is where I had Loki at launch. Silly, dude. I mean, obviously, you had to say, well, the collector with them. I looked at Thanos independently, so I'm going to look at the same. It was a 3-5. The packages around it were cracked. The game was cracked. No one knew what to do about it. Everyone was so stoked at how cool it was until they realized, like, my God, what have we done? It was the same with Goliath. It was the same with any of these big cards. High Evo had his heyday, too. where people were like, I can't wait for this card, only for a week later for people to despise it. Loki was the king, the captain of that ship, and he came in at number 4 for me.
My number 3. So we
Okay.
swapped right there, right? So
Okay.
yeah, we're almost right at each other there. So I agree. And it's crazy because like I know you were so hyped up for Loki. You were like, yeah, this card,
Oh,
it's
been a
me.
way.
It's exactly how I want to play this game. And like we didn't expect it to be as overtuned as what I think we knew it was going to be good. Like I think you were like, no, this card's going to be good. The discounting cards, it's always good in Marvel Snap. That's what we said over and over again. Discounting cards is never bad in Snap, right? I was blown away at how good it was. Blown away. You had Quinjet synergy, but just even without Quinjet, it was just so good. And what was crazy about it is like, hey, whatever you have in your deck, like we were playing it up like, oh, you're copying your opponent's deck. How good can that be? Well, like who's making trash to your decks? Like no one's going into ladder with absolute garbage.
For whatever reason, like Loki wasn't seen as a threat. But yes, who's playing bad deck? They're like, well, what are you going to do with a discounted Brood? It's like, who gives a damn? You have the rest of the cards too that you can then just completely, yeah. Loki, we know about it by now, completely busted. 2 and 1. I know we've got the same one. It has to happen. So what's your 2?
My number 2 is everyone's favorite pet kitty. It's not Goose. It's Zabu.
Zabu's my 1.
Zabu from number 2. That's your 1?
Who's your 2? Or 1?
My number 1 is OG Kitty Pride.
Oh, dude, I didn't even put her on my list. No, I don't think.
Why you forgot about OG Kitty Pride? One of us was gonna do it.
I don't know
One
if
of
I
us
would
was
put
gonna do
her.
it.
I don't know if I would put. I'm trying to think of every card that I mentioned here, and if I hated the OG Kitty Pride the most. Oh, you mean like when it was like broken, like it didn't even have a week
when
in the
literally
game?
you could select it, choose to bring it back to your hand. It did the whole zip thing.
Dude, that
It was
didn't even
like-
exist. Dude, it was one day. It lasted one day.
It was one day.
One
But
day,
I got
yep.
to play with it for that one
That's
day.
fair.
I'm telling you, it was the best card in Snap's history. It was
Yeah.
so fun and interactive.
That's fun.
It could stay on the board if you wanted to. You could pull it back. You could move it. It was so
Oh, dude, I
fun
love
to
that you
play.
can pull it. Yeah, the mechanics, I hope, return around it. It was so brief. Kudos, because it was so brief that I'm like, I didn't even think of it as like something that players had to endure. But if we're just talking what the title is, most busted cards in Snap history, bingo bongo, buddy. Love it,
Actually
man.
killed the game.
Yeah, it literally
They had to
killed the
cut it.
game. Dude, great pick there. I love it. My 2 was Leader. Well, hold on. Well, 2 Leader, 1 Zabu. Let's talk about Zabu quickly. Yo, like, what do we not? So what do we have to say? We've talked about it before. Zabu was stupid. Zabu was busted. Zabu was allowing you to play 4-cost cards for 1, bro. Like, what else we got to say about it, you know?
I still, to this day, sometimes I go to bed after a hard night's work, recording the Snapchats and editing, 3 a.m, lay in bed. I close my eyes and I see in my dreams Spider-Man absorbing man. Yeah, and I'm just like, "Ugh." I wake up, I'm like this, I'm like sweating. My wife's like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not okay.
Friendly neighbor. Yeah. Oh my God, I heard that. Friendly neighbor. And I was like, God, I swear to God, you're anything but friendly. Yeah, like that was the beginning of the end of that Spider-Man package. Like him existing, so bad. And you had the absorbing man, and you had all these other 4-cost cards that could go with it. Oh, by the way, Shuri existed in that world, which like what the hell? Like just so stupid, so busted. Don't know who signed off on that one, but clearly died very quickly. Zabu had to be there. And then I had Leader at 2. So Leader for me, man, I think you're doing a disservice of having it as low as you did, man. Copying every card the opponent played. Every card. And that was before we even were good at Snap. The community sucked at Snap, bro. Like nowadays, with that kind of power, it would not, no one would be playing the game. I mean, it was so busted. The fact that you got the stats afterwards, too, was the extra funny bit of the entire thing, and getting all the Surfers Broods and they're boosted already, and then depending on the ordering sequence, you could get the Broods out, and then if they played Surfer last, you get the Broods that are already boosted, and then you would also get the so stupid, man. It was the most busted card, in my opinion, in Snap's history. Leader, man, I miss him in ways because of just how funny and ridiculous this guy was as a card. I had him at number 2. What a segment. That's like, that was one of my favorite. We're going to do that every now and then because I think it's just like a fun thing to revisit. But people have been waiting. We got to talk about the OTA. We got to talk about the winners and the losers of this patch as we end out our Christmas episode. You ready?
I'm ready, buddy.
Let's start with Ronin at the top. Now, I don't know if it's the most exciting change. At the same time, that we have been begging for Ronin to be good or viable in some sense. Alex, we got our wish. I truly think, not even because of him, but the changes around him as well, Ronin is going to have some viability.
feels like he has a bit of a higher floor, which is nice, right? Like the ceiling on Ronin's now going to surpass that of Devil Dinosaur, but the challenge has always been that you can't control what your opponent does to a certain degree. Like you do have some agency, like, oh, I Baron them and I do Master Mold and stuff, but right, as a whole, it's like the 5 power is significant. Like we often forget, we often kind of underestimate how powerful a single point or 2 points of power are in Marvel Snap. Like you lose tiebreakers on 1 point all the time and you don't really think about it. This is a significant change. And I actually liked your idea in the past where you talked about like, oh, bring them down to 4, right? We had this conversation, right? And it's cool because like at the end of the day, like they keep him at 5, they increase his power level, which keeps him analogous to something like a Devil Dinosaur. But they have improved some things along the periphery as well with some other cards that I'm sure we're going to bring up as well.
Yeah, so we can almost go straight to those. I'll say this about Ronin. If we get even a couple more cards that can feed cards to the hand, then we're really cooking. And I honestly think, I'm going to talk about some synergies I think that are going to work with them. Like one that I want to point out before we get to the main card we're going to talk about with Ronin, obviously being Maximus. First of all, Black Widow curves out a bit better in that deck. Not so much. You're not playing like a bounce build or anything. But I actually think Mobius might have a spot in Ronin decks because you want to prevent these people from playing their cards, right? You don't want them to play cost reduction cards. And this is a good way to kind of halt that, to make sure that they don't get it. And you're putting up so much power on the last turns that it's kind of fine to eat it on 3 here, right? Because you're saving a lot of you pushing cards, things like that. So I think we just have to rethink how Ronin's going to work. But the biggest change to me in the patch, no question, on the buff side, is Maximus at 2/6. Listen, I'm sad about Surfer. I get it. It was a small margin of Surfer decks. But as far as plug-and-play ability and the 7 months nobody played Maximus and an answer to Blob and a great way to work with Ronin decks on the last turn for cheaper, this is a win, man. I think Maximus is going to get more play and be a better overall card. And this helps Ronin substantially just in the stat department.
It actually is a huge buff because like 2 is one of those powers where like you can do a lot of damage with a 2 cost, right? Like if you Sarah, it's a 50% reduction. You can match it well with a notable play on turn 5. There's so many things you can do with a 2 drop that you just can't do with a 3 drop sometimes, right? And so like I love this change. It is one of the it is the highest statted 2 drop in the game. Obviously still a very negative effect, but if you're against a Blob player, then maybe it's a little more positive. But with Ronin, you want to stuff their hand. And what's also notable is if you're playing Ronin decks and like you've played Baron or you've done Master Mold, there's a good chance that their hand is so stuffed as it is that maybe they're only drawing 1 card, or actually you're actually like not actually getting much of a negative impact, especially if they're a Thanos player and they're drawing cards and you play it, they already have 7 in their hand. There is no downside to Maximus. So there's a couple really interesting nuanced parts about the Maximus change that I'm actually excited to test.
So you could put 5 cards in their hand and put 10 power on turn 6. Maximus, Mold, and Baron. That's kind of nutty. Like, you can build up your Ronin massively, very quickly, and have respectable power on top of that. But more so, I think people are missing this. I love the Sarah point, but more so than just that, not only is he the biggest 2 drop now, power-wise, but all these other ones, outside of Silk, but even you can't control her, they have cons. They have, like, Lizard can't be played because of this, right? He can't be played everywhere, whereas this is just 6 power, truly the best, like, last drop of the game kind of card. Anytime you lose 1 cost and only 1 power point, we saw it with Miss Marvel originally. It's like, okay, this is insane. This is massive. I think this is a great free-to-play answer to Blob as well, which I was a big, I don't know how much that'll be used. Who knows, but I kind of like that it's there as like somewhat of a valve of alleviation per se, if that makes sense altogether. Black Widow, listen, we talked about it. We talked about Black Widow. We wanted, there to be some changes to her. They made it a little bit too good. And now I think this is ultimately, I like this spot, right? Because Black Widow's fine. It was the bouncing of the Black Widows where it's like, oh my God, it just was getting over and over and over. Whereas now she's not going to be bounced whatsoever, right? I don't think that's going to happen much.
One thing I want to note though is something that crossed my mind when I saw this Black Widow change was this was a shadow nerf to Ravonna. We actually talked about Ravonna, but now Black Widow will no longer benefit from the Ravonna synergy.
You are correct, but I have to tell you, man, I don't know how so many people missed it. I think they were... We'll get to it. I'm going to pause for a second on Ravonna. I think Ravonna got a buff, actually.
You're getting emotional.
No, I think she got a big buff. Hold on, I'll tell you all
Really?
of that.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. And by this point, it might be discovered I'm filming this. It's not known as much. Let's talk about Surfer. Let's stick it on Surfer for a second. Punisher. Now, I had a meme on my video What does Glenn do? +1 power or complete rework? We went with the +1 power. This feels like the Watu change to me, but I do want people to understand something. 3-7 on the last turn of the game on Sarah Surfer, where you want to explode and you have a 3-7, you have a Maximus stat line that everyone's playing these flood decks. He's not that bad. Like, this is now at least playable in Surfer decks. I truly think so. Punisher's still a garbage card, I think. I don't think he's going to get a lot of play. But in Surfer specifically, I don't hate it.
I don't know if this is copium, but there's a chance that you can do like a Jean Grey Punisher style deck, which obviously you play Punisher into the Jean Grey location, which kind of nearly guarantees his stat line, right? That could be something worth experimenting with. I don't know what the straight up power level of that is, but the disruption is notable.
Yeah, the Jean Grey is one route, but I'm just telling you, like, as I play Surfer out, right? If you just put him in a lane with 2 cards, he's Polaris.
It's true.
Like, that's it. And then we get him up to a 3-7 or a 3-9 potentially or beyond. So, like, I honestly think Punisher will be there. I'm a little sad overall that this is the route they go, and I hope it's like a band-aid to a much bigger solution. We got the whole new card explanation. I hate it. I can't stand it. But now we finally get to use some really cool Punisher variants, I think, that are out there. So I'm excited about that. People love the Punisher, too. Just a great card. Bro, we got to talk. I know you're beaming. I know you're over the moon, my man. Over the moon. Listen, you know I'm not like the craziest Gladiator fan, or I wasn't. There are cards when they get a power increase or a power decrease. Like, sure, you're like, what the hell? Like, who cares, right? But when that power is directly, it'd be the same if Black Panther got a power increase. You're like, okay, this affects his entire kit completely. Alex, this is a nice change for Gladiator. This is the pre-nerf Gladiator that we were promised. I love it.
I was over the moon when I saw this. Like, I've been playing Gladiator in its prior kind of rendition, and like it was kind of sad, but I still really liked it. 3-8, it's for the exact reason why you just said. It's not just a straight up power buff. It buffs the entire kit. It's a 2-pronged approach, because not only are you buffing the amount of power that sits on the board, but you're also buffing the ability for his effect to trigger. And also, extremely notable here is the change to Chavez. The change to Chavez reduces the amount of cards that Gladiator was likely to pull from the deck and lose that fight with.
I thought about you, and then I thought about, I know people were sad about Maximus a little bit, but this is such a great change for Surfer too.
Huge change.
Surfer now also has like a huge tall threat that isn't just Brood as well. Like, Maximus was there too, but Maximus's con was you couldn't play it early, where Gladiator you can play a bit more early, right, if you need to. And Alex, I pointed this out on the OTA here. We're both just so excited. You look at 7 powers that he can destroy now, right? Because I think the tie at 7 was brutal in popular cards. Annihilus, poof. Onslaught, who's getting so much popularity. He kills Onslaught. Pulling down an Onslaught was brutal, man. But now he just destroys it. Like, the 8 change to Legion. It's great.
It's going to completely change this card's viability, and it's going to be a little meta dependent, like in a blob-based meta where people are just stuffing Giganto and Infinauts into the deck going full greed for no reason. Like, you probably don't want to play him as often, but as the meta shifts, like it goes towards like a negative style meta, right? Like a Surfer negative like we saw before, he would absolutely eat those decks apart, right? And so, like, I think it'll be a little meta dependent, but even still, even if you lose a trade, right, you pull out a card that you can't necessarily, like you pull out a Gamora, for instance, you lose that trade. At the end of the day, like, he's still a massive stat stick that's getting buffed across Nova, across Silver Surfer, whatever else you're doing. I honestly cannot wait to play more Gladiator, because I said it before, literally one of my favorite cards in the game, one of the most fun cards to play. He was a little undertuned, and now he's there.
But Viper, like, Black Widow felt like a change to me, whereas Viper felt like a straight up just a bummer, man. Like, 3-4, here's the thing. I understand. Junk, I didn't always play Viper on 2, right? Like, there are times where the curve here is kind of nice. You have different things, different play lines you can go with. But, man, it's like Sentry Viper, dead in the water. Playing Hood Viper, dead in the water. Havoc, now you have to play differently. Albeit you can still play Havoc on 2, Viper on 3, and you get more power in the Viper. This one was sad to see.
It was sad, and I think this is a bigger nerf or change than people might originally realize for a couple reasons. One, it was not uncommon that you would do, like, obviously Hood Viper, but also you oftentimes played something like a Black Widow, and then if you didn't actually pull anything on turn 4 or 3, you'd actually Viper the Black Widow over because it's occupying space is only 1 power. Who actually cares, right? It's just clogging, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that's worth noting here is that, like, with Viper's change, there's not like it's not as easy to slot in, just like what you said with Sentry, right? You can't necessarily just okay, well, the 2 power is easy just to be like, okay, I didn't pull a Nihilist, I can kick over that void. The 3 power just doesn't allow you to do that. It doesn't give you that flexibility. It's not analogous with Surfer. Like it just because it cannot really play in Surfer very well.
Yeah.
It feels like a very significant change, and it also occupies the same energy as Green Goblin. So like now it's like you have a choice on turn 3. Do I Viper what or do I Green Goblin?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel as clear.
Yeah, because 4 through 6, it's like it's Sentry, Doc Ock, you have other plays, Annihilus is in there. Again, it makes it a little junky. We'll touch on Martyr. She went up to 1-5. Yay. To me, actually, I will say this makes you playable, as in like she's comparable to Titania now. If you play Titania, 0 list, Zoo list, you can now put the double up decks in. Martyr, actually, whatever. I'm fine with it for now. I think it's okay. I think it is, I would like for her to go negative. We've talked about that, but I'll take a 1-5.
I think that eventually they have to release a card that's negative that forces your opponent to lose a game. I think that's really cool. But actually at 1-5, I would prefer this over Titania, I think. Now, Titania has like the junk effect. Like it has that big brain junk effect, but also it trolls you pretty damn hard very often. And so like that can be frustrating to play with. At the end of the day though, if you have like Kazar, if you have Blarvel and all that stuff, like it's still a 1-7 with those buffs. Can a 1-7 really lose you the game sometimes, right? Like can it? Like it's a lot of power still on your side of the board. So like it makes it more interesting. And again, we said it before, you can kind of underestimate the power of 1 power.
Yep, absolutely. That was a great Dr. Seuss rhyme. Okay, dude, let's get to the 2 major shifting ones. We have Professor X going from a 5-3 to a 5-1. This is obviously huge. Professor X has never been adjusted. He has been kind of the ironclad for so long. One of my favorite cards. I love control. A lot of these cards we've talked about, guilty by association, kind of like it's not exactly their fault. It's the things that have come out around them. Viper, Pro X, we're seeing this now. So here's the thing, guys. It's the holidays, so we had to film this a little bit early, right? And for whatever everyone's talking about, oh man, the Thanos deck is ruined. It's a Ravonna card, and it's a Mr. Negative card at that, who also needed that. I know we can't always go Mr. Negative. It's not going to boost him by a million, but Ravonna's with Mr. Negative at that. So now you have an alternate win condition with Mr. Negative, an alternate of an alternate, right? Man, I'm pumped. Like, we got to focus on what happened here and all the decks around it, but Ravonna.
You and I have been talking about Ravonna for months, talking about how good this card is. And it's funny how, like, you try and nerf Professor X in one regard, and then you kind of bring up another different beast, right? That could be potentially problematic. I love the call out. It's absolutely incredible. And I think that, like, you're also forgetting, like, goblins get kind of buffed by Ravonna. So now you might be able to sneak a gob and then throw down the Pro X, right? Like, there's a lot of low-key synergies and play patterns that a lot of players aren't going to be expecting. So if you're quick to this type of gameplay where like you're going to sneak out that Pro X and Ravonna deck, you're going to catch people for 8 cubes. You're going to catch people by surprise because they're not going to be expecting it.
Is why we've talked about Ravonna being a great card. She's going to continue to always have something in the equation. If something goes down to 1 like this, I bet you that they thought about putting him at 2 just to avoid that potentially, right? And who knows? Maybe that gets boosted up if people start to really go that route. But obviously, this is good to tackle the majority of Alioth problems, the Thanos ramp problems. Jeff just outright beats him. Mr. Fantastic beats him now. This is a big nerf to X as a whole, though.
Oh, it is a huge nerf because also keep in mind a lot of the ramping strategies have him being played out on turn 4. That forces you to not have the Daredevil benefit. Like, it's crazy because if you think about what Daredevil does, Daredevil was hugely beneficial to something like a Professor X. However, the strategy of Time Stone, Psylocke, and all that other whole Ravonna now too, it all revolves around getting that Professor X out on turn 4, which does not actually keep Daredevil in the meta at all. Yeah. So I wonder if Daredevil's effect will benefit Professor X because of how much more risky it is to just throw out a Pro X and hope that it lands with only 1 power.
So much more we could talk about him, though. Let's move on and talk about, listen, we are kind of, man, I don't want to say we're good, but we're good. We've been nailing these changes. We talked about it forever. I kept echoing this. If they took power away from him, no big deal. If they change his cost, bigger deal than that, right? And he's going now from a top 5 card to a very good card still. But this is a huge hit to Wolf. What are your thoughts on the Wolf change?
My thoughts are that you nailed it. I said I expected him to go to 3-1. You called for power, and it's exactly what ended up happening. So, kudos to you for actually being on top of the meta, knowing what's up. But what I will say is this is pretty huge. The key thing here is that obviously we're delaying his play is huge for something like a Werewolf by Night, because it really takes that bounce side out of it, out of the equation. Because you play him on 4, what do? Like, you beast on 5, and then like you try to, like, it really, that delay is huge because it really restricts your ability to bounce around with all the cheap stuff with beast, because beasting on 4 and then playing out all the stuff on 5 and closing out the game on 6 made way more sense. This is actually pretty damn significant. Moreover, he gets to the Shang-Chi range a little early. I believe it's 1, because you go from 3 to 5 to 7 to 9. Now he goes 6, 8, 10.
Yep.
So he's at the Shang-Chi range faster, which is kind of notable, because if like you're on turn 5 and they already bounced it around a couple times and you're like, I have initiative, I can punch this wolf out right now, it makes a difference.
So it's one thing I just don't want us to lose sight on when we have a card that's insane like Werewolf. We've talked about this all the time if you guys listen to the Snapchat. 4 costs, 10 power is the threshold. 10 power comes with cons. You need to meet those cons, like Typhoid Mary, like Sentry, and if you meet them, you have a great swing, right? It's 3 bounces, which is very easy to get him to 10 power, right? So Werewolf is still a very good 4-drop at that. You can Zabu that. He is played into a lot of Darkhawk decks also, right? So you can go ahead and have a lot of on reveals. Yes, it's a little wonky, but you can play out your cards in a way that Werewolf comes out on 4, and you still have cheap options to build them up on 5, or maybe you bounced early on 3, and you at least got 3 1-drops on revealed, bounce back for free, play Wolf, then you bounce them all around, and then you have turn 5 and 6. So it's not dead in the water, but it definitely takes a massive hit, and I'm going to be interested to see kind of what happens to the Wolf. Still a good guard. I would not have buyer's remorse. Did you miss him at his peak? You did, but he's still going to be usable, I think, in a much different way. Well, guys, that's going to be it for the Snapchat for us. I'm glad we were able to get a video up. We still have not missed it. Holiday, rain, or shine, we're here from Alex, from us to you. We wish you guys a happy holidays and appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We have one more Snapchat this year on the last day of the year, which is a fun thing that kind of ends up as that. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Enjoy the holiday, enjoy Christmas, and until the next one, happy snapping.